Hello and welcome to the Simon and Friends podcast on YouTube. I am Simon Short. Joining me tonight is Ben Parker. Ben, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. We're loaded. Let's get to it.
We are here on the Box Score Network YouTube channel. Thank you all so much for being here. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel. Again, this channel includes all the hosts and all the podcasts for Box Score Network. So make sure you subscribe after watching this video or right now while you're watching. That way you can stick around and see all the hosts and all the pods from Box Score Network and everything they're uploading. We're uploading once or twice a week. Stuff from all of our podcasts, get a little amuse bouche, a little taste of what we're doing over the course of the summer here on Box Score Network. So stick around. We appreciate it. Tonight, Ben and I are kind of previewing the full audio podcast that we're doing next week. So it's Wednesday, the 11th, as we're recording this. This will be up to you guys at some point over that weekend. We're doing the All-2018 team. We're making our 22-man roster, the very best players at the positions from the 2018 NFL draft. As a precursor to a 2018 redraft that Ben and I are doing. We started doing these, I think, last year, but just for fun, even not on a mic or anything. A couple of years ago, Ben and I started doing these redrafts together. And we last year we stumbled into 2016 or 2017 when Aaron Donald retired. This year we have the great MVP debate of the quarterbacks, and that's where we're going to start off with our all 2018 team. So Ben, not even thinking about who you voted for necessarily for MVP this year, although I'm sure that's part of it, our all 2018 quarterback slot. Who was playing quarterback for our team, would you say? I'm gonna give you my team for all of these positions, which is what I told you I was gonna do, but I want to know what you did at quarterback first. This is the one I'm gonna quiz you, put you on the spot for.
Flip a coin, and I'm happy. But give me Josh Allen, if for no other reason than I think he's going to have a longer career. That's really
Yeah.
what it came down to.
I went with Josh Allen as well. This one was so difficult. I was flip-flopping for the week since we've decided. I was flip-flopping last night. I was flip-flopping today when I was when we were on the Zoom before hitting record. Ultimately, I don't do this. I don't do QB wins or playoff success necessarily for a lot of QB decision makings. When we're splitting hairs between two elite quarterbacks, two MVP quarterbacks, I look at Josh Allen being having a 25-4 touchdown interception ratio in the playoffs to Lamar's 10-7, and the overall durability and availability. Lamar missed the Ravens playoff game in 2022. Josh Allen has started 16 more games in the regular season than Lamar Jackson, and that's even including Lamar's only starting half of the games as a rookie or whatever it was. So, overall, the from 2018 until now, Lamar has maybe had the better highs, but at this point, Josh Allen's overall body of success in the regular season and the postseason, I want to give him the nod at the quarterback spot. Don't worry, Lamar fans. Don't worry, Ravens fans. Lamar will be well represented in the podcast next week. Uh, so come back for the redemption arc there. Running back, Ben, this really came down to two names, but I went with Saquon Barkley.
Same here, Saquon, and there's a little bit of recency bias, but Saquon ultimately went out there for me.
Nick Chubb is obviously the other candidate who, at one point, I mean, if we had done this in 2020,
Right.
2019, maybe we're talking about Nick Chubb, but obviously a couple injuries and just the meteoric re-rise of Saquon since going to Philadelphia, being Offensive Player of the Year and almost breaking the single season rushing record, everything he did last year on his way to a Super Bowl gets him that nod. Now, I want to put the pass catchers all kind of together, Ben. I didn't give you any rules. I didn't give you any stipulations on how to configure these lineups. I just said 22 total, 11 on offense, 11 on defense. I can't wait to hear what weird stuff you did. I'm glad we got by quarterbacks. I'm glad you didn't try to say like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Let's run like some kind of weird wildcat in this team here. I ultimately went with just the classic 11 personnel, three receivers, one tight end, but I am interested to hear if you saw this any other way. I went with DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, Calvin Ridley, and then Mark Andrews as my tight end.
Yeah. Okay. So I came up with the same thing. It wasn't easy, but that's
Nope.
ultimately what I came up with. You got arguments for about I don't know what 5 6 different guys here to be
Yeah.
honest, but I knew I wanted DJ Moore, so I guess we can just start with that. DJ Moore
Yeah.
was the one guy I knew I wanted really, again, because of the longevity of the career. You look at some of the guys in the draft, there is an unusual number of twists and turns in the careers of some of these
Yeah.
guys. Some late bloomers, some early bloomers. But ultimately, DJ Moore was the guy I knew I wanted. So I started there.
Yeah, a guy like Christian Kirk was on like the long list, and he had that like he was a niche player with Arizona. He gets a big contract with Jacksonville, one really good year, and now he's already kind of like a slot holding the ball until the rookie and Jalen Doyle is warmed up kind of deal. Um, Mark Andrews became my like quickest lock once I actually was looking at the numbers. I didn't think that was going to be the case because the other tight ends in this class, this Dallas Goedert and Dalton Schultz, like two pretty good players. And Mark Andrews, the last couple of years, it's not what it was at the peak, right? That 2019 to 2021 run for him, but he has the most receiving touchdowns in this class of anybody at any position with 51. The next closest is either Sutton or Moore at like 40, I think. Now we know Sutton and Moore haven't had the best quarterbacks in their careers, and Mark Andrews is playing with Lamar Jackson, but still 51 touchdowns, a really, really high number. He's also second in total catches and second in total receiving yards. And he's the only pass catcher to be named to an all-pro team. Nobody else has been named to an all-pro at any point. Um, Cortland Sutton is the only other pass catcher to even have a Pro Bowl nod. He's made one Pro Bowl, and he and DJ Moore were locks for me as well. Um, both being wide receiver ones for a majority of their career on their own teams, highly productive. I believe Moore is the second or third. He's second or third in touchdowns, and he's first in yards and catches. Um, I was wondering if you were maybe going to do a two running back thing and knock somebody off, like a Calvin Ridley, for instance, and try to get Nick Chubb in, or maybe go 12 personnel, get another tight end. But Calvin Ridley, man, you look, he has such a consistent string of productivity in his career, and that's even with missing a year because of a suspension. When he goes for over 1,000 yards 5 or 6 times in his career at this point. He's a guy that, yeah, will maybe never be and never got to the point where he was going to be a true wide receiver one on a team. But when you look back at this class and you want to not only look for the highs, but also look for like, okay, who is just like consistently good? Ridley, especially in his numbers, but I think his play overall, I think we always have known
Yeah.
this is a really high end wide receiver too. And in an era of football where that's a really valuable player, I think Calvin Ridley, kind of gets that nod over trying to squeeze in another running back. Not that you'd ever actually put Chubb and Barkley on the field at the same time, but gets him over a Christian Kirk, a Schultz, a Goddard.
Yeah, Chubb at running back was insane there for 2 or 3 years, right? Ultimately, I've leaned towards the guys who did it for a little bit longer here on this team. So I didn't try to get too fancy there with two running backs. And Ridley, when you watch Ridley, maybe not right now necessarily, but 3 years ago, again, boy, he was quite the weapon out there on the field. Just dangerous. So yeah, I went vanilla there and went the same route that you went as well.
Let's talk about what we really want to talk about, Ben. It's the offensive line. This was a good offensive line draft,
Of
man. We
course.
don't get we don't get a lot of these. Now, my natural inclination here is to cheat. I don't know about you, but on offensive tackle, I would really like to have Jordan Mailata at left tackle and Orlando Brown Jr. at right tackle because I think flat out like both where those guys are now, where these guys are now, where you look at kind of the total arcs of how they've gotten to 2025 out of 2018 and then what we're kind of projecting over the next couple seasons. I think they're going to have the two best careers. I think they're also going to be the two most decorated players at offensive tackle from this group. Orlando Brown has multiple Pro Bowls. I think he's the only guy to do that. Mailata has an All-Pro second team nod. Um, and with the development track that he was on, it feels like, like this is going to be sustainable for a little while, especially him in Philadelphia. But there's only one issue, and it's that Orlando Brown Jr. hasn't played right tackle since 2020. So I don't know if he's eligible there. If we look at true AP All Pro voting, it's a left tackle and it's a right tackle. They don't mess around. But I don't know, Ben, for our purposes, and I know you're not the biggest Orlando Brown Jr. fan, so this is I knew I was going to get a fair reaction from you. Can
Right.
I just have two tackles And the fact that Orlando Brown played right tackle for 2.5 seasons will get that for me, or are you gonna make me are you gonna make me pick a true right tackle and then I have to choose between Mailata and Brown?
No, listen, we'll suspend the formalities for the night because my slight Orlando Brown bias notwithstanding, yeah, we need to get the best players on the field. I don't care. He'll figure out right tackle. All right, no problem. So he'll figure it out. Yeah, let's get Malata at left and Brown at right. Okay.
And again, a lot of good players here. Colton Miller from the Raiders, Brian O'Neill from the Vikings. The only other one with a Pro Bowl nod, and he would have been the one. He would have been if I had to choose one left tackle, Brian O'Neill would have taken that right tackle spot. Braden Smith from the Colts. He's been a little up and down the last couple of years, but he's been a really good player, or he was a good player early in his career. Mike McGlinchey, gets that big second contract. He's on one of the best offensive lines in the league with Denver right now. But I think both for the fact that Orlando Brown's also been on good teams. He was on one of those Chiefs Super Bowl teams, right? He wins a Super Bowl with the Chiefs. Jordan Mailata has a Super Bowl, been to another Super. Like they're gonna feel like not only the most decorated, but also the highest ceiling. And the guys that are like still start, like Brian O'Neill's still a starter. Yes, Colton Miller is
Mm-hmm.
going through a contract thing with the Raiders. Like we'll see what happens. But Braden Smith looks like he's already towards the end. So it feels like they're gonna burn the brightest for a few more years here. But as Super Bowl winning tackles, I think with the highest talent, I wanted to get those two guys as my left and my right.
The only thing I want to do here is just without tearing down Orlando Brown is give more nods here to Colton Miller, who I think because he's
Hmm.
been on the Raiders has generally speaking, not gotten enough attention for how good he really has been over there at a difficult position. I mean, man, you play left tackle on some of those Raiders' offensive lines were rough, buddy. He had no help. They weren't sending any help to him because they couldn't. You know, he got no reinforcements ever. He's on his own against some pretty good edge rushers, and he's done more than hold his own. He's been on the plus side, and despite the lack of decoration for it, he's a guy who's really done really well over there at left tackle. And there's no way I'm going to put him ahead of Mailata, but he does deserve probably more attention than he ever got, and most of that's with being on the Raiders.
I 100% agree. And as a rookie, he gets drafted to replace Donald Penn, who was like a 10-year NFL starter at left tackle, right?
Right.
And you're just thrown into this. He was the pup. He was this vet. It was this veteran group those first couple years of his career, really first year of his career, and then it all started to fall apart. Um, just really, he's the Jake Matthews of the AFC, just like super solid, like to set it and forget it. Nobody's gonna,
Yeah.
unfortunately, remember the name at the end of the day. But Coleman, very very good player. Um, for a very troubled organization. Let's do the guards. We'll split the guards in the center here because we have some really significant players to talk about here. The guards are easy though. I mean, really, it all is Quentin Nelson and Wyatt Teller are my two guards. I couldn't even tell you. I really thought even twice about a left or right situation. Always forget which side Wyatt
Who
plays on
cares?
because he's got Joel Bitonio with him. I just know you got all pro guards right there. So it's Quentin Nelson and Wyatt Teller at guard.
Totally agree, and I love both of these guys. I love their work ethic, their attitude, their performance. I love it all. I will say with and by the way, left right, I don't care. Let them go to their own meeting. They're going to have their own meeting every week and decide who plays which position. Okay, left, right. Okay. Um, but for Quentin Nelson, you talk about a guy who was purely, totally, almost talent wise dominant early on, then had that rash of injuries.
Hmm.
He's still not back up to where he was, but he has circulated back up
He's
again.
gotten
So
back. Yeah.
really glad to see that he's back up into that high level performance. And maybe he'll never be the total elite guy that it looked like he was going to be, but he has worked his way through the injury and gotten all the way back up to some really good performances. Love to see that out of Quentin Nelson.
Yeah, those first 2 years, right? 2018, 2019, he was an all-pro first team, his first 2 years in the league. It was
Yeah.
like,
Hmm.
and at that point, where Zach Martin was still like right at the tail end of his prime, it was like Quentin Nelson's like the new best guard in the NFL.
Yes.
And it was funny because this was right around the time that I started doing this and we started doing our O line grades again. I was like, okay, cool. So Quentin Nelson's just like a Hall of Famer right now, 3, 4 years into his career. And then yeah, the injuries start piling up that he plays through for the most part. He only had the 1 year
Mm-hmm.
where he missed a couple games, but he gets back to the second team All Pro here in 2024 from AP. I think probably some other thing like the pro football writers and stuff like that. But in terms of AP, he gets back to the second team this year.
Yeah.
So it looks like we're back on track. And yeah, Wyatt Teller, just another set it and forget it. Like don't worry about it. Yeah, those two farm boys, physical at guard, crushing people would be a lot of fun. And the reason we're here, Ben, because again, initially we were like 2018 is what we'll do our like off-season focus on because of the quarterbacks. They just had that MVP race. I guess that's interesting. But shout out to Frank Ragnow, 29 years old, 7-year career, love the cup. Um, how many? Let me get these. 4-time Pro Bowl. How many All Pros did he get? Of course, he's competing with Jason Kelsey all those years. So sec
One, no all pros on the first team. Yep.
no first team AP All Pros, but 3 second teams I think I see here with the 4 Pro Bowls. And again, this guy, talk about playing through injuries. Like this guy was always hurt. He missed essentially the whole 2021 season, came back in 2022 and has played 3 still outstanding years. Um, should be like a Lions Ring of Honor type player. I don't think he's going to get the hardware to ever be remembered as like a Hall of Famer. And again, the offensive line stuff is so hard because you get 1 or maybe 2 into like the Hall of Fame or like the real retirement recognition stuff like that at a time. So there's this logjam of like really just fantastic players. Like it took Alan Faneca a long time to get in. I think Steve Hutchinson is still waiting to get in. And those are even guys just from like when I was a kid. Like forget about going back even further, but just a stellar player. And man, when we did our O line rankings, and it's him and Jason Kelsey is who I'm measuring centers up against now for like the rest of my life. It's just not fair. It's just not fair. Like at least Kelsey's 6'2", 280. And it's just like, well, nobody's gonna be as fast as him, but like you could do a decent facsimile of that. You could be a poor man. You don't get 6'5", 315-pound centers who are just like strong and moving people one on one. Hitting Nate Tice has been tweeting stuff out. The reach blocks of this guy just like ISO by himself after a snap on like a wide zone play. Um, to do at as big and as strong as he is, my gosh, the guy could play. So shout out Frank Ragnow. He's the All-2018 center. And what year was Kelsey drafted? We might have to cut off. Can Kelsey be in the previous decade so we can make Ragnow this all decade or something like that? We'll figure something out like that. 2011 for
Yeah.
Kelsey. We'll put Kelsey in the 2000s. We'll make Ragnow the 2010s. We'll just flub it a
Got it.
little bit.
Yeah. I hate to see guys. I hate to see anybody retire early, but especially a guy who kind of suffered through a lot of the Lions' rough years and then got to enjoy the taste of success. I selfishly wish the Lions had been able to pick up a Super Bowl and then he could have, ended on that taste and right. But anyway, hats off to him for tremendous career. We're thinking of you, Frank Ragnow, and yeah, you're our center of the 2018 draft.
Can't wait for him to show up on the athletic football show like Mitchell Schwartz and just be just be a podcaster.
Yes,
I need it.
absolutely.
All right, so that's our 2018 offense. Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, Calvin Ridley, Mark Andrews, and then an offensive line left to right of Jordan Mailata, Quentin Nelson, Frank Ragnow, Wyatt Teller, and Orlando Brown Jr. Let's flip it over to the defense, Ben. I think this will go a little quicker. And listen, we love the defense, man, but we were here for the quarterbacks and Frank Ragnow. Really, is the only thing we were really doing here. Uh, defensive tackle, I have Daron Payne and Vita Vea. Any differences for you there?
No, Vita Vea was an easy one for me. Fans of Commanders will argue a little bit about how good and successful Deron
Yep.
Payne was, but ultimately you look at this and I'm just not going to go grab the other guys, so I'll settle in on Payne as well.
Here's where we talk a little schematics because the other really big defensive tackle to think about would be like a Harrison Phillips. But when we get to these edge rushers, I'm like, I need a little more pass rush juice. And Phillips
Yes.
is a high end run defender. But if I even want to sniff a quarterback with this 2018 team, I just need a
Mm-hmm.
little bit. So I'm thinking Vita Vea is taking on the double teams. He's plugging things up. That's going to make Deron Payne's life a little bit easier. I agree. I was thinking about our guy Robertson. Shout out Robertson. Odds on favorite, odds on Commanders over on Pro Football Plus. But I know how he felt about this whole defensive line. But Deron Payne was at his best when all 4 of those guys were playing in there. When it was Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, and they're all able to work off of each other and open things up. So if I'm putting an all-star team together and Duron Payne is the third best defensive lineman,
Right.
I think I'm gonna get something out of it. And just in terms of career success, like Payne is gonna get the nod over Phillips. Edge rusher. I think there was like three and a half names to really consider here. Wasn't a great group. But I settled on Harold Landry and Josh Sweat getting the nod over Bradley Chubb. So Chubb might be the best ceiling player of this group, the best like highest level Madden rating, peak of his powers. But the production, the consistency, and the longevity just aren't there for him compared to Sweat and Landry. There's still time for him to make up ground over the back half of their careers, but Sweat and Landry's numbers, health, and team success, Landry was on several good teams with the Titans. Josh Sweat wins a Super Bowl, and was he on two? No. Wins a Super Bowl, gets to another. Um, they get the nod for me over Bradley Chubb. But what did you do here?
Yeah, I the Sweat thing, yes. Just because part of that's just because he was with the Eagles, I guess. I might be giving Sweat too much credit. The Landry thing, I liked him. Um, but boy, those years by Chubb, right? Those first, what was I don't remember what. I think I'm going to
It's
put
like
the
the
Chubb.
first and the third year.
Yeah, I think I'm going to put Chubb in there because it's not like Landry was so consistently overwhelming that I just couldn't leave him off the list. So I think Chubb is where I'm going to go on my side. But still, you have three pretty good ball players right there. And I even thought long and hard about Hubbard,
I know
honestly,
you
just
did.
because with Cincinnati, and again, I know he doesn't have the high end. He can't even touch the other guys in the high end, right? But, consistently, I liked Hubbard's production too. So I thought about Hubbard, but dang it, I think Chubb is probably what I would put in.
They're all really good number twos. Sweat across from
Yeah.
peak Brandon Graham into a Nolan Smith and the rest of that defensive line there for the Eagles. Just really good number two edge. Sam Hubbard across from Trey Hendrickson, Harold Landry across from all the defensive tackles they've had in Tennessee, Chubb across from Von Miller early in his career. Um, all really good number twos. And again, Chubb would be that number one. So if we're even defining this as like their peak season, right? And then we might go with like a Lamar or something. But if we just went with these edge rushers in their peak season, it might even be Chubb and Hubbard instead, right? Because you're thinking like
Yeah.
Chubb is the guy that could give you a 14 sack season. I just went and double checked, and he literally had 12 and a half or 12 sacks as a rookie across 16 games. Year two plays 4 games, gets 1 sack. Year three, 2020, 7.5 sacks over 14 games. Year four, 7 games, 0 sacks.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. So it was
like,
brief. Yeah.
but
That's not enough,
but
man.
man, when it hits, and then to the point that I forgot he played all 16 games for Miami last year and had 11 sacks. Just because first off it's Miami, but second of all, like I hadn't thought about Bradley Chubb for real in 2, 3 seasons. It felt like so. Um, Again, it could still all work out for Chubb if we did the same exercise in 5 years. If he
Yes.
posts 55 sacks in that time, like yeah, we're cooking. Um, but right now, yeah, just the consistency of the other guys gives me the nod for them.
It was not the greatest year for edge rushers as we usually think of them. Only two even drafted in the first round, really,
Yep.
in terms of our traditional edges. And, you got four guys here, but nobody really yet has just turned it on.
Yeah. Linebacker, this is easy. It was a great linebacker draft though,
Whew,
but it's still
yes.
so easy. Fred Warner, Roquan Smith get the nod, but Roquan was a top 10 pick. Fred Warner goes in the on day two there. Tremaine Edmonds is involved here, of another very good
Yes.
player. Zaire Franklin, a really sneaky nice player. Even a Foye Oluokun, who like you and I know what his ceiling is and his real value, but still a good player. So five man in a world where the linebacker is a dying breed, to have five linebackers that you could really even think of in an exercise like this in one class is really cool. But Fred Warner and Roquan Smith obviously take the cake.
Yeah, and I got to throw in Shaquille Leonard too because he had
Yeah.
three
Yep.
three Pro Bowls, three first team All Pros for that 3 seasons, right? This was the one position on the whole roster where I thought about cheating and getting inventive because we did have so many freaking linebackers right here and linebackers I really like. I like these linebackers better than the edges, but Warner by himself just takes the cake, man. I mean, he makes the whole linebacker draft all by himself. I just love Warner. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, what how could we cheat this? If we're running if we're running like an amoeba thing, right? Where only Vita Vea has his hand in the dirt, and then
Yes.
it's and then it's like just Josh Sweat, Fred Warner, rookie year Shaq Leonard, and Roquan Smith all just kind of up roaming around looking menacing like they're the Minnesota Vikings of 2024.
Yeah.
We could
Yeah.
if we were cheating, that's what we would do.
I would.
Um,
I would. I'm very tempted. Okay, that's really got me going.
that is fun. There's a lot of good. I miss linebackers, man. I love these guys. Um, how did before I even give you the names, and you're gonna hate this. How did you divvy up your defensive backs? What did you do here?
Yeah, I went traditional, but I because the linebackers were so good, I could be tempted into monkeying with even the secondary here. But I went two safeties,
Okay, so I did
and
I did two corners, I did two safeties, and I did do a slot.
right,
I did
yeah,
a nickel. Did you do it? Did you specifically do a nickel?
not necessarily. I wasn't really trying to think about that. I just went for the best.
I love that you're just like, how much can I cheat? And I'll just see what Simon allows
Yes,
me to do, and then I'll tell him what
exactly.
I did. Uh, Here are the names I went with in my defense backfield. So I have five guys. I have a traditional five-man defense backfield. I went Denzel Ward, Carlton Davis, Derwin James as my nickel corner. He was all pro second
Ah,
team nickel corner last year, folks. And I went back and I checked his slot numbers, and they are consistently the same or more amount of safety snaps that he has played his whole career. You love this. And then Minka Fitzpatrick and Jesse Bates are my safeties.
I love this. All right, look. All right, we're redoing the whole defensive thing. Okay, we're going back to defensive tackle, and we are getting rid of Deron Payne and going with the big defensive tackle who I can't even remember, and we're
Just
going to
Vita
pair him with
Vea.
Vita Vea. Well, no,
Oh,
Vita Vea
Harrison Phillips.
stays.
Oh, I see what you're
Yeah, and
saying. I see what you're
Phillips.
saying.
We get rid of an edge rusher. We have four linebackers, and we go with this setup here. Okay, because really it's
Okay.
three safeties. But you're right. Derwin James is so good and flexible and athletic. That's what we really want to get back to. He can do the slot. And matter of fact, studying the Chargers, I'm not sure that moving forward, they don't draft or they don't work in other safeties to get James in the slot and then just work him off of the slot
Hmm.
area because that keeps him in the box, right? So, I mean, if he wants to be there. So, no, you're right. I love this. And Jesse Bates was hard to leave him off, right? I didn't want to leave
Yeah.
him off. That's the kicker. It's like, okay, well, I can get James in there at slot, so I like that.
Yep.
And then of course, Minka Fitzpatrick's going to be all over this team. He would not be left off of any team.
If I was gonna have to choose two of those guys, I was worried Derwin was gonna be the guy because his productivity. First off, he's had a couple injuries there at the end of 2019 and missed 2020. Even 2021 didn't feel like he was fully back yet. But it felt like his productivity and his effectiveness kind of waned as like this Swiss Army knife player with new coaches coming in all the time. It's just really hard. Whereas like once Minka got to Pittsburgh, it was like, okay, you know what you're getting here. And his game has changed a little bit. Jesse Bates like is really good in Cincinnati and then just like is an explosion of getting to do like even more stuff now in Atlanta, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Um, so Durham would have been the guy that missed out. And then shout out Teron Johnson. He was going to be my slot before I went and looked up the numbers on Derwin James.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I wanted to get Johnson a little bit of love. Outside corner. Some really good names here. Denzel Ward was the fourth pick in this draft. Carlton
Yes.
Davis is ultimately the guy I went with. Jair Alexander, just released by the Packers, but a couple really good years there early in his career. And then DJ
Mm-hmm.
Reed, a guy that you and I both really like. Shout out to the Lions mug again. Who ideally, what were you doing here with these outside corner spots? Two corners. Who were you trying to get?
This was hard, and this is where I am so thankful that you went Derwin James to slot because we ran over this back when we were studying the Chargers back in the winter
Hmm.
about their roster and the way they were doing it. So I love what you did with the Derwin James thing. Denzel Ward for me had to be on here. I don't
Yes.
care
Yeah.
even where you
Easy.
line him up; he's here. So he's the easy one. That second corner was the difficult spot. I actually went Jair Alexander myself and that's where I went against kind of recent stuff, which is injuries and what are you doing type of things, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Ultimately, it seems like Carlton Davis is going to have the longer, better, tougher career, right?
Yep.
But if you're looking at kind of prime time, I like the Jair Alexander stuff better, man. I mean, his athleticism just was off the
Yeah.
charts, really. And DJ Reed is nice, but even at his peak, it already kind of seems like DJ Reed was a late bloomer, and it already kind of sort of seems like DJ Reed is coming down off the bloom, right? So
Yep.
I left him off, and it was down to, do I want the tough, hard-working, hard-nosed Carlton Davis or that more athletic talent, Jair Alexander? I could be talking to either one, but I picked Jair.
Yeah, and Davis is sneaky, like nicked up every year. He obviously ends the year with the Lions last year with
Yeah,
the broken jaw, and he's going to New
yeah.
England this year. But um, just that bigger, more physical style, I'm gonna lean towards if it's pretty close. And the fact he was a starter and like probably nominally a corner one on a Super Bowl winning team. And when you look
Mm-hmm.
at stuff like this and you go back through these things, the hardware matters, right? So that's why I mentioned some of those, the Josh Sweats and Mylatas and Browns, these guys that have won some trophies, won some hardware, get the nod from me. We're already running a little long, I think, but this is what we do. So if we were gonna get the best 11 defenders on here, let's try to count them off. So I think the five defensive backs we could start with that we just did: Bates, Minka, Derwin, Carlton. Oh, well, okay, we even
Carlton's
differed
fine.
there.
Let's take Carlton. Yeah.
Carlton, Denzel Ward, those five.
Yes. Yes.
Linebackers: Fred Warner, Roquan Smith.
Yes.
Do we want to let's throw Shaq Leonard in there just for that high.
Okay.
Oh, and by a name I wanted to mention, another guy that burned bright for a couple years, Leighton Vander Esch. Different style than
Yes.
Shaq Leonard, but like
Absolutely.
just a downhill wreck you
Mm-hmm.
kind of guy, but couldn't sustain it because of injuries. But let's throw Roquan or Shaq in here as number
Mm-hmm.
8. Number 9, Vita Vea.
Yes. Got to have
Number
him.
number 10. I mean, again, if we're doing the best of Shaq, we can do the best of Bradley Chubb. That's our number 10.
Yes. Okay. You picked that last edger because I don't
I
have
don't
my
even know
heart.
if I want another edge, man. Now I'm sitting here thinking,
Give me another linebacker. Yes.
do I just throw Tremaine Edmonds in here and just get weird with it? I kind of
Right.
want to. Or even another corner. Can we go dime?
We can do that
Dime
too.
with Vita
Yeah.
Vea as at nose tackle and then just like a couple linebackers just like looking like uh what's the a volt like vultures just roaming around looking like they're gonna eat somebody. I think that's what I want to do.
It's a
Get all
two
those
six
corners in
four
there.
defense. Okay.
That's it.
Is that
That's
right?
it.
I don't know. That's probably too
I
many
don't
people
even
on the
know.
field, but I don't
It
care.
could be at any time. It could be it'll feel like 264. Vita Vea is two people up there. All right, so the defense got weird, everybody, but the defense essentially actually came down to Deron Payne, Vita Vea, uh,
Yeah.
Josh Sweat, we'll say Bradley Chubb, Fred Warner, Roquan Smith, Denzel Ward, Carlton Davis, Derwin James, Minka Fitzpatrick, Jesse Bates. Everybody that's watching, I hope you enjoyed this. That got a little silly at the end. But this was really good class. So take this as a little preview.
Yeah.
Next week on the Simon and Friends podcast, me and Ben are doing a full 2018 redraft. We're going all 1 to 32. We're doing the original draft order, so some of the draft day trades that you know and love may or may not happen. Ben has his 16 teams. I have my 16 picks. I have my 16 picks. We're going to compete against each other a little bit. We're going to see what happens. So come back, tune in for that on the audio side, Simon and Friends podcast. Subscribe to this channel, Box Score Network. That way you can keep up with everything that all of our shows and all of our hosts are putting up. We appreciate you all. We will talk to you again very soon.